healthy skin, easy digestion, and happy full life. For a limited time, I can get you 54% off Nature's Blend and a free pack of premium dog treats. Just go to drmartypets.com/Tom, drmartypets.com/THOM, or text Tom to 511-511. Text Tom to 511-511. Message and data rates may apply.
Tom Hartman.
Remember Ronald Reagan telling us that if we just cut taxes on rich people, it would trickle down to the rest of us? It sounded so nice at the time, right? If we just end the unions, companies will be more profitable and they'll want to pay you better and give you better benefits. You know, if we just move 60,000 factories out of the United States, there'll be an explosion of tech jobs. All these white-collar jobs, they'll pay so well.
The Tom Hartman Radio Program. Weekdays 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor. Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Visit managerbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
This is AP News. I'm Rita Foley. He's pleading not guilty, and former President Trump is rallying supporters after appearing in federal court in Miami yesterday, accused of hoarding classified government documents and refusing to return them.
It's a political persecution like something straight out of a fascist or a communist nation.
The AP's Donna Warder.
Trump arrived at the courthouse to cheers. There were the friendly.
He's done so much for us.
And the not so friendly.
Lock him up!
As Trump left the federal courthouse, he gave a wave and a thumbs up. Then he headed to a Cuban restaurant where he was greeted warmly by supporters who sang happy birthday one day before his 77th birthday. He returned to New Jersey where he held a news conference to talk about the charges against him.
This is called election interference in yet another attempt to rig and steal a presidential election.
I'm Donna Warder.
To Ukraine now, where Russia fired missiles overnight with deadly results, say officials there. The AP's Charles de Ledesma.
Russian forces have fired cruise missiles at the southern Ukrainian city of Odessa overnight, and shelling has destroyed homes in the eastern Donetsk region, killing some citizens and injuring many more. A Ukrainian military spokesman says Russia has stepped up aerial strikes in the 15-month war against Ukraine, just as the country's troops have reported limited gains at an early counter-offensive. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
It's bad news for thousands of people in the Philippines who've had to evacuate because of an active volcano. The eruption could last for months, say officials, who are worrying about the crisis this is creating. The villagers who had to evacuate are from mostly poor farming communities. The Golden Knights got past the Panthers 9-3 last night to take hockey's Stanley Cup. The Dow gained 145 points yesterday. This is AP News. Now to Microsoft.
Microsoft's planned Activision Blizzard merger is on legal hold. A federal judge has temporarily blocked Microsoft's planned $69 billion purchase of the video game company Activision Blizzard. The ruling gives more time for an antitrust review of the deal. A U.S. district judge ruled in support of a temporary restraining order sought by the Federal Trade Commission. While a number of countries have approved the acquisition, regulators for two important economies, the U.S. and the U.K., have taken action to stop.
Hey, everybody. How you doing, Dave?
Suppress competition.
Linear Bob. How are my sweeties this morning? Andre, hey. Sending you all so much love.
Of the Xbox game system, acquiring the company behind hit games such as Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Candy Crush Saga. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Gas is $3.59 this morning. I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Okay, who do we have here?
Now,
Reverend Wilson is on, and I'm also on your Facebook.
Okay, fantastic. Reverend Wilson?
From the Weatherology Weather Center.
Reverend Wilson?
Yes,
ma'am. I want to call you back at 7. Can I keep you for an hour from 7 to 8?
Sunshine developing high in the upper 70s.
Yes, ma'am. Evening is
That's
great. Okay, great.
Hour. And for tonight, we'll see decreasing clouds.
Okay, so just for
Thursday,
auditory
some chance for showers
interest.
and
And
thunderstorms
if
here
you
late.
now,
Clouds and sunshine develops a high 81. Friday, sunshine high of 70.
did you get a chance to see his
Saturday,
speech
mostly
at
sunny, high of 81
Bedminster?
degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather
Okay,
update.
great.
Currently, it's
That's
60.
very important that you
This is
see
John
that.
Daniel, President and
That's a
Business
big
Manager
deal.
of the Sheet Metal Workers of Smart Local 265. Workers across Illinois shared a
This is about
victory
to
last
get
week.
real.
Talk to you.
No.
There's some
You got to do the
this
good
was for
news
the
here.
sole benefit of unions.
You do the
Although
good news, and
we did
then
it
for the political
benefit of all
part,
workers across our state. If you work at a coffee shop, a sheet
Okay.
metal shop, or a corporate office,
it's to, these
workers
are, I
deserve
try
a safe and
to
respectful workplace.
keep a wall
Fair living
between,
wage to raise their
between
families.
what you're doing there and
Affordable
there.
and expansive health insurance to
Okay.
protect their families.
Ms. Jackson, I don't see your live up.
Oh, I am
every
up
day
though.
for those basic rights. This amendment
'Cause it
blocks
says that I'm
anti-worker
live.
legislation that continues to negatively impact families across many other states, including lowering wages and unsafe
So
working
if you could
conditions.
just take
There was
another
a lot of
look,
buzz when this amendment was up for
Yeah.
a vote, but I
because it
believe the
says
real
I've been live
buzz
for
should
6
be now.
minutes.
Let's celebrate a win for the
Okay, I still don't see it. Let me try going into my other Facebook, see if that pops up.
Okay, I appreciate it.
If you have ever thought about remodeling your bathroom but were worried it would take too long or cost too much, then stop worrying. Right now, Jacuzzi Bath Remodel has designed a collection of high-quality custom products and perfected the one-day remodeling experience so you can enjoy your new bathroom faster than ever before.
I'm on Santita, Jackson, and Friends, but I don't see live up.
Okay, everybody else is on
System
on
fits in your
Facebook
existing
now.
tub space. It's a no-mess installation with an
Okay.
amazing style
Let
selection,
me-
factory-certified installers, and a limited
In the
Okay, it just popped up.
broadcast.
Just
Is it?
popped up.
Okay, thank you.
9895.
All right.
That's 800-826-9895 right now and get
Nervous.
50% off
That was
installation
not your
with
fault.
no interest and no payments for
Okay.
12 months. Replace that old
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Okay, thank you for that.
If you have lived in your home for
Reverend
over 50
Sounds
years,
good.
it's
Okay,
time to
great.
remodel your bathroom. For a virtual or
Right.
in-home appointment, call 800-826-9895. That's 800-826-9895. 800-826-9895.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Okay. Okay, and how much time do we have?
On teachers.
We have 3 minutes.
Okay,
Our
fantastic.
tomorrows, starting their students on journeys that will change the course of history. Right now, in a classroom somewhere in the United States, there's a teacher inspiring a future scientist who will make preventing pandemics their life's work, sharpening the mind of an aspiring environmentalist who will help combat climate change, and generating possibilities for a student who will be the first in their family to graduate college. It all starts with teachers who meet challenges with creativity, who reinvent education for the future, who work towards a school system that lifts up every child, regardless of race, income, or zip code, and to enable the full potential of our students, our communities, and our country. Explore a career that leaves a legacy you can be proud of. Shape the future. Teach. Learn more and receive free support at teach.org.
What's one of your favorite memories?
That's a tough question. Well, there was this one time I went camping with my parents in a forest back when I was maybe like 8 or 9. And I can remember one night we were laying out in our hammocks and we were just, watching the trees rustling in the wind above us, and we could hear the sounds of the forest all around us. Frogs singing and owls calling and the creek running nearby. It was amazing. It felt like we were a part of it all. I don't know if I do it justice trying to describe it, but I'll definitely never forget it.
Most of us have a memory of being in nature we'll never forget. Let's protect the world's natural places so more memories can be made for generations to come. Visit worldwildlife.org.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard has led to a lot of firsts for me.
1 minute.
Assistance I received made it possible for me to be the first person in
Thank
my family
you.
to go
All
to
right,
school
everybody, let's
and
have a great
graduate
show.
debt-free. That education helped get me to the first day at my dream job, a job that I can still hold while I serve part-time. That job, plus the other benefits possible from the Army National Guard, helped me become a first-time homeowner. Also, part of my role as a National Guard soldier means I know that I can be one of the first to respond and help my community if disaster ever strikes. I'm extremely proud that I get to serve my community, and that first step I took by joining the Army National Guard has made all the difference in my life. Talk to your local recruiter or visit nationalguard.com to find out what firsts are available to you in the Army National Guard.
10 seconds.
Illinois Army National Guard, aired by the Illinois Broadcasters Association and this station.
Stand by.
To WCPT 820, because facts matter.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Wednesday, June 14th, 2023. I'm coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to meet my morning stars, the Santita Jackson Morning Stars, over on the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. But please, Facebook reached out to me because of the traffic we're getting, and they want you to go over to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. So, Laura, would you mind trying to do that? And Robert and all of you. Robert's already over there. Thank you. Barbara, you all get on over to the YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, and everybody like and share the show. Of course, we're going to be talking about President Trump, former President Trump, and his being in court yesterday, his having been fingerprinted, having been arrested. Indeed, we've never seen this before, not in the history of the Republic, in the more than 230 years of American presidents. This has never happened. We've never had a president federally indicted. What does that mean? And he's still running. He's able to run. If he's convicted, he can run. He could actually become president. What does all of this portend? What does this foretell? What do you think about all this? I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. I want to know what your thoughts are. How did you feel when you saw him when you saw the cars going into the courthouse? What did you feel? Do you think that he's going to be prosecuted? Did you see his speech at Bedminster at his golf club yet last night? There was a fundraiser, and it was very interesting. There's a lot that we need to unpack about what he said and about what presidents can and cannot do, what senators can and cannot do. Because it seems in this process, we found that a lot of people walk away from office with a lot of top secret information. And if you go to a presidential library, that which has been top secret is no longer top secret because it's at the library. That's right. If you really want to find out about the Cuban Missile Crisis, you should go to the Kennedy Library up in Boston, up in Cambridge. And on and on and on and on that goes. So we need to really unpack all of this and see what is true and what is not true. So call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. And what does this mean for President Biden? The Republicans, and led by Donald Trump and other Republicans, they said they're now going to go on the offense. They are going to go after President Biden and his son Hunter. Wow. I think is going to become quite a contentious, if not ugly, season. So let's talk about it. Call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-WCPT. Of course, at the top of the headlines, President Trump. Indeed, former Vice President Mike Pence said of the indictment, having read the indictment, these are very serious allegations, and I can't defend what is alleged. Donald Trump called the U.S. a corrupt country, as he put it, after pleading not guilty to criminal charges related to his handling of classified documents. He told supporters at his New Jersey Bedminster resort that he had, quote, every right under the Presidential Records Act, close quote, to keep sensitive material, which also included personal belongings. Former FBI General Counsel Andrew Weissman said part of what he said is just a straight-out confession. What does that mean? What does that mean, everybody? Trump was released with no travel restrictions, but was ordered not to communicate with key witnesses, one of whom rode back on the plane with him to New Jersey, including his aide, Walt Nauta, who was with him, his body man, his aide de camp, if you will. Despite facing jail time, Trump vowed to, quote, totally obliterate the deep state, close quote, and appoint a special prosecutor to target the Biden crime family if he wins the 2024 presidential election. This is going to get interesting, folks. The market's view on the Federal Reserve has shifted markedly in the past few weeks, with investors now more convinced about a rate hike in July and far less convinced of rate cuts later this year. And of course, with the rate hikes come more unemployment, everybody. With inflation still running hot amid looming economic uncertainty and recessionary fears, the Federal Reserve appears set to take a breather from interest rate increases at the end of the two-day monetary policy meeting today. We will see what happens, even as we are finding that more and more that inflation is a result of corporate greed. That has come out as well. That is a study that has just come out, everybody. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. Let me know what you think about all of this. And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show as the GOP faces a split over using National Defense Authorization Act to fund Ukraine. Will more money go to Ukraine? Chicago, we're going to have a high of 67 degrees, partly cloudy. In Minneapolis, St. Paul, 87 degrees and clear. In the NHL, well, guess what? Congratulations to the Golden Knights. They closed it out last night. They won the Stanley Cup. That's like the world's biggest trophy, everybody. Having won the series over the Panthers 4-1. Panthers put up a fight, but the Golden Knights, they basically swept the series 4-1. Congratulations to them. They won last night 9-3 convincingly. In the WNBA, well, Chicago and Minnesota are off today, but tomorrow the Fever will be playing the Sky, and on Friday the Lynx will be playing the Sparks. In Major League Baseball, the Twins 7, the Brewers 5, the Cubs 11, yay, and the Pirates 3, and the Dodgers 5, and the White Sox 1. Those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Let's get right to it, everybody. Call me at 773-763-9278. I want your reaction to the arrest of Donald Trump yesterday. What these indictments mean. Will they hold, everybody? Will they hold? Call me. 773-763-9278. Hey, Dave Dowling. Hey, Susan out there in California. You said you felt uneasy, Susan. I wish you'd call me and let me know. I want to hear more about that. Call me at 773-763-9278. I love to hear your voice, Susan. Dave Dowling, Andre Parker, and Barbara Bacon, Robert Williams, Shirley Carter from beautiful Philadelphia. Praying for you all since you've got that mess that we have on the I-95 in Philadelphia. Wow. And Robert, you said you're loud and clear here. Hey, Laura Bell, how you doing? How you doing? Sending you all so much love today. Joyce Anderson, hey. All my people, Ty Austin, a great day from Atlanta, sending you much love. Call us at 773-763-9278. Susan, I hear you. I felt uneasy. You know, the president means so much to us, whether you voted for them or not, whether you like their policies or not. They are really a paragon of stability for the country. So if they are arrested, even a former president, if they are imprisoned, you see why coups are forced in other countries. Because someone who is that admired, when they're brought low, it does something to the people. It hurts the people. That's why people are saying, oh, America's looking like the third world. Well, you know, we made the third world, the global south, look the way it looks because we go in and overthrow their governments. Yes, we do. And it is devastating to a people. It's painful to watch all of this happen. However you feel about Donald Trump, you know, I don't agree with Schadenfreude, which is a German term for glorying in someone else's downfall or someone else's humiliation. It's painful. I'll never do that. I hope that I will spiritually stay in a place where I don't do that, and I hope that you will too. But this is a very, very challenging moment, but it's a moment in which we've got to figure out who we are as a nation, who we are as a people. Reverend Jeanette Wilson, we need some good news today because boy, oh boy, what a time we're living in. Reverend Jeanette Wilson, not only are you a lawyer and an educator and a pastor, of course, you are at Rainbow Push, you're head of the Push Excel program. You've worn a lot of hats and you wear a lot of hats in this lifetime. It's a very challenging time, but there is good news, even now.
Well,
Reverend Dr. Wilson.
I think sometimes, and thank you, Santita, for always trying to lift people in the midst of so much chaos, confusion, and despair. I think that oftentimes we become despondent, and it's like, what am I going to do? You hear about the former president, you see the level of violence and interactions, and you say, what should I do? Well, I found this text, which is really kind of different. In Genesis 35, 1 through 7, you have Jacob, who left home running from his brother. Many of you may or may not know, his twin brother had threatened to kill him because he stole his birthright. Long story short, Jason goes far away, lives with relatives, and falls in love and gets married. And interestingly enough, his father-in-law had really mistreated him. So, he ran from the fear of death to a situation like many of us, you're working, and you're working, and you're working, and you never make ends meet. Jacob's life was very, very much like that. So here we have Jacob. God says, go back to Bethel. Well, what I didn't tell you, when he was running from his brother, Jacob found himself out in the kind of a wilderness. He was not familiar with living without the comforts of home and trying to live off of the land and making it on his own like his brother could have. And so that first night out alone, he had to pray. And when he prayed, that's when you can hear the song Jacob's Ladder, and you hear about Jacob having a real encounter with God for the first time in his life. A lot of us know about God, never had a real encounter, relationship. Well, Jacob has this dream, and he's this ladder going up and down, angels descending and ascending to heaven. But he experiences God and ends up in what some would say, some writers in the Bible, says he had a wrestling match with God. And so God said, he tells God, I'm not going to let you go till you bless me. Sometimes you have to wrestle with your faith and not stop believing until God blesses you. And oftentimes God takes longer than we feel is appropriate because we want immediate change in our circumstances. Sometimes the wrestling that God and causes us to engage in makes us really pause and reflect over the situation and look at what we did to contribute perhaps to the situation. But at the end, we have some issues when we finish this wrestling with God. But in the end, we're able to move forward. We have a new understanding of life. When Jacob finished that time with God, he went on to work for Laban for nothing for 7 years, and another 7 years so he could marry the woman that he was in love with. And at the end of that, he didn't get her right away because his father-in-law tricked him and had him marry his other daughter. You got to read the story. It's a Netflix series in the Bible. But anyway, what happens is we go through a lot of stuff that we don't want to go through, but God takes us through so that we might really appreciate our relationship with God. And so as I look at what we're going through now, it's like never before have we experienced any of this. No president has ever been indicted twice and impeached. I mean, this is just unprecedented stuff.
Wait a minute, not saying that none should have ever. Not saying this shouldn't have happened before, but it has never happened before.
Never has happened before. And then to say, I didn't do it. Okay, it's not true. Much of what he's saying is a lie, but we are living in the midst of these things, and we don't have what we feel like the information that really help us understand what is going on. Meanwhile, many of us are struggling day to day, not enough money. We don't understand what it means, the inflation. We don't understand. But remember this, God is in control of all of this. Contrary to what we may believe, God is ever present. And he's saying sometimes in the midst of it all, you need to go back to the place where you first had a positive and challenging and eye-opening encounter with God and with your faith. Remember that moment, and that will keep you to the next moment.
Amen to that.
God is.
Look, and so it is. And so
it is, as Johnny Coleman would say.
And so it is, and so it is, and so it is. Hold on and hold out, everybody. Your change will come, and it always comes just before you're about to let go. I love you, Pastor Wilson.
Reverend Evans used to say, reach past your breaking point and just yet hold on.
Reach beyond the break. We love Reverend Evans. He stays with us every day, doesn't he? We love you, and
oh my God,
we have you put your political hat on at the top of the hour. We can't wait to have you back to hear what you've got to say about what you're seeing, because in fact we're going to be dealing with this at the Rainbow Push Convention. We'll be talking more about that at the top of the hour, July 15th through the 19th. Go to rainbowpush.org, everybody, and call us at 773-FREEDOM throughout the day. Sending you so much love. You know what? I've got Dr. Shanina Knighton, Reverend Wilson. We've got to have her come to our convention, because infection prevention is a big deal. And she has given us some eye-opening advice. She's with us right now. College lecturer at registered nurse, college lecturer at Case Western Reserve University. And in fact, she's got such an inspirational story. She's the first person in her family to get a high school diploma, let alone a PhD. Just brilliant. And Doctor, she has always said to us about these masks, and I just had to add, I don't know why this popped in my mind, Dr. Knighton, but you said, the masks come with instructions. I said, oh, all right. Forgot about that. You that part. And, I was watching, we're flooded with information, with medicines that we're told to ask our doctors about on TV. And then you also, maybe every 10th commercial, see a lawsuit about a medicine that you might have been asked to ask your doctor about that could make you sick. What is in the fine print? And because clearly we're held responsible when we take it because we don't read the fine print, but what should we be looking for, Dr. Knighton? Because the fine print really does matter.
Good morning. Yes, no, the fine print does matter. And so on masks, I understand people would like to protect themselves, which is important. But just like with anything or the majority of things, it comes with instructions. And so those instructions that you see may indicate the duration of wear. So one of the first important things on the mask, it says, it is a one-time use only and for you to dispose of it. We understand that things may have been limited during the pandemic, but none of that is ever safe. In terms of you being able to use the same one for multiple reasons. It has on there a shelf life. So on a box of a mask, it will tell you if that mask is good for 2 hours, if it's good for 4 hours, or if it's good for 8 hours. It'll also sometimes have a warning on there about exposure to UV light. What does that mean? That means that when you go outside and you are wearing a disposable mask and you are exposed to the sun, there are small plastic particles in that mask that will cause that mask to break down and not be as effective when you go back on the inside. The other thing is you may be inhaling some of those particles as well, which could be harmful. So I do always recommend to individuals to read the boxes. I know that there is a lot of controversy in regards to what is considered a good mask versus a bad mask. I always describe to people that I want you to visualize with me a curtain and a window. And if you have a curtain up to a window and you were to spray that curtain with a bottle of water, all of the water is not going to get on the window because the curtain is in the way. So what masks are meant to do is to stop some droplets from getting through, even if it cannot stop all of them. And that is regardless of the type of mask. I know people are like, oh, well, if I don't have this sort of mask, then I'm not going to wear a mask at all. But depending on certain situations, you may still benefit from wearing that mask. However, as I mentioned, Santita, it's very important for us to recognize that there are limitations to it. It's actually not on topic, Santita, but when we talk tomorrow, I would actually like to talk to people about some of the dirtiest spots in their home and potentially the germs that they're making them sick without them even knowing.
That's perfectly fine with me. You just let me know. Let me know if you want 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or a full 30 minutes, because that's a big deal. I was watching another one of your colleagues, another doctor, a physician, but your PhD, you all have topped out in the education space. And she was saying that many people, she was showing the different parts of the body that we neglect. Just, if you, she was like the ears. She said, we neglect, and I was like, whoa. I mean, because I guess because, I was raised by old women, and they would dig all over you. My mother's important.
Yeah.
No, it's
all of
important.
those holes is meant for excretion, or is meant to actually protect something from getting internal into your body.
Okay.
And so many people don't understand what the purpose of earwax and, I hate to say it, but boogers are. They don't understand the purpose of it and its protection in regards to those germs. And so
The caller's on hold.
people consider those areas of their body. So the belly button, is another one I'm sure that you've heard about.
Oh, yeah.
The back of the ear. So yes, yep. So nope. I'm absolutely in alignment with what it is that Dr. was mentioning.
I mean, really, let me tell you. So we'll talk about the house, and then please, another day, let's talk about the body. Things that we just should not miss, everybody, and just how to clean the ears, because many of us push the wax back down in the ear because of cleaning. I mean, and that's not gross, everybody. This is just real, and you don't want to make yourself sick. Dr. Shanina Knight, and everybody, let's talk about what happened yesterday with former President Trump. And as an honorific, you always call former president. If you saw President Carter today, God's rest, he hasn't passed, but he is in hospice. You call him President Carter, President Obama, President Bush, on and on and on. So that's why some people have been offended by my calling Donald Trump President Trump, but that's what you do with all past presidents, members of Congress, all of that. So even though I didn't vote for him, I'm still going to honor him and the office in which he served. So call me at 773-763-9278. Let's talk about President Trump in just a few minutes. Okay, can you bring up Beth? Hello, Beth? Beth?
Yes. Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, how are you? I wanted to hear your voice. My board operator said that you had something that you wanted to share with me, and I want to hear from you.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I had wanted to come to the conference, but partly other than not being able to afford to stay, first I'm coming to the Netroots Nation conference happening a week before that I have someone paying for me to go, and you can't afford to have me stay longer than I can. But another reason is that, I feel like Rainbow Push is not dealing real well with issues of disability. And I feel like some people who have been working on it have been hanging up in me and saying, have a nice day, and claiming that they're dealing with it when they're not. And I mentioned that in Chicago, if you are aware of this, that there.
Beth?
I'm sorry, I accidentally hung up on her. I'll call her back.
Oh, please call her back, because I want her to know that I'm listening to her. Because whatever her issue is, I want to deal with it. Shanine, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, go on and listen to what we're talking about with President Trump. Boy, it is going to be on and cracking. Because
I know. I ain't gonna lie.
What'd you say? Oh, girl.
I said it's so exhausting.
I want you to know your girl my crazy self. I'm here for it. Oh! I went, I am here. Oh my gosh, that's the part of me that's my mom. But you know, my parents are up for a fight. Now my mother said if there wasn't a fight, she said I'd start one. Now that I didn't say that was healthy, but it is what it is. She is she does not mind this at all. And she called me yesterday, so what do you know? I said, wow, I have risen in the ranks anytime my mother wants to know my political thoughts. I said, what? What, Mom? Ooh. And here we are. Top U.S. companies admit to hiking their prices.
We have 1 minute. I'm sorry, I hung up accidentally on Miss Beth. I was putting Mr. McKee on, but Mr. McKee's on and Reverend Yuri's on.
Call her and tell her I will speak with her very shortly. Okay? And
yes, ma'am. I called her back. She didn't answer, but I'll call her on the next break.
Well, I'm going to make an apology for you and let her know that you are a splendid board operator. And it was an accident, and you're in between several studios, and we have a lot going on. So.
Thank you very much.
No.
We have 30 seconds.
You do great work, and that's the end of that. Okay?
Thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, Dwight?
Ma'am.
Okay, Reverend Yuri?
10 seconds.
Good morning.
Okay, great. Make sure you all are not on mute. Fantastic. Thank you.
Stand by.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, Wednesday, June 14, 2023. The Rainbow Push International Conference will be here in Chicago, July 15th through the 19th. You need to be here. And Beth, we're going to be calling you back. It was an accident that you were cut off. Beth had some questions about how Rainbow Push deals with people with disabilities. We do absolutely the best that we can. And in fact, Reverend Jackson technically is someone who is now disabled because for the most part, he's in a wheelchair. But this is something that we've been dealing with. We've had people who, as Reverend Jackson put it, have been differently abled since the founding of Operation Breadbasket and through our churches and all of that. So it's not, we don't ignore you, just so that you know. I don't want you to think that you've been ignored. And we would love to keep you at the convention, and you're going to be at one convention just prior to ours. We wish we could keep you, but we're trying to raise funds for ourselves. But I wish you would continue to listen to us because my board operator has been trying to call you back. But just so that you know, Alex he's the best. He is just the best at what he does. But he's minding not just my show, but he's minding another studio. So he is, sometimes when I call him, he's at another studio because we've got several stations that run out of our station. So please understand, charge it to the fact that he has got a plate that is filled to overflowing. Okay? All right, so everybody, call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. What did you make of what happened yesterday? President Trump was arrested. Carrie Lake, who said, look, 75 million of us stand behind him, and we are NRA members. Ouch. What did you make of his speech at Bedminster? Did you listen to it? I think that you needed to. I'm so glad. I had planned to listen to it. I got caught up in some other things, but former President Trump said a lot. He said a lot. And, of course, what a moment for all of us to know that our former president has been arrested, has been fingerprinted. Interestingly enough, they did not remove his passport, and he's got a plane, and he's got properties all over the world. No, they didn't do that. But it's just been an interesting day. How do you think this is going to impact the campaign? Because now he and his allies are going to go on the offensive. They said they are now coming in for Joe Biden. He said, if I become president, I'm coming for him. But his people coming for Joe Biden and Hunter Biden right now. So what do you think about that? And what are the merits of all of these cases? Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCBT. I want to know what your thoughts are about all of this, because this is an unprecedented moment. Indeed, in his speech at Bedminster yesterday, he talked about the Presidential Records Act. He talked about the Clinton Sox case. Many people might not have listened to him, but you need to listen to all of that, because these leaders walk out of the White House with all kinds of stuff. They do, including top secret records. There's just a lot going on here. So we need to talk about it. And we've got two brilliant minds and you to weigh in. So call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, Esquire, Rainbow Push, senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church in Baltimore, and Dwight McKee, social scientist, of course, one of the founding members of Operation Push, National Action Network. Of course, you work with Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch on the West Side in this magnificent program where you're lifting up our young boys and men. Why don't you weigh in first, because you were fascinated by what Donald Trump said at his Bedminster golf facility yesterday at the country club that he has, and what struck you about what he did yesterday, this campaign rally after he had been arrested, fingerprinted, and all of that?
Well, a couple of weeks ago when we first started having this conversation, one of the things I said is that you have to be careful when you open up Pandora's box, because you don't know what's going to come out of it. And what they did by putting Trump in this position where he has to fight for his life is he's perfectly willing to fight for his life. And so now what he did yesterday was a blueprint for their assault on Biden and Biden's family. He laid out a case, a very thorough case, that nothing he had done was not anything that Biden and Biden and Clinton.
Mm-hmm. And George W. Bush. He didn't let the Republican go either.
Yeah, what they hadn't done. He hadn't done anything that was any different. And as a president, he had some rights that have to really be weighed in the courts. But also what they charged him under the Espionage Act is also going to be a telling part of this proposition, because it's really kind of, and Yuri can speak to that, but it's really kind of a rarely used act that's 100 years old that goes back to World War I. And so what he did was, which I thought he was going to do, is use it as a legitimate platform. It increased his popularity. He's going to use it as a big fundraiser. And as I was talking about the Gunzilla example, is that when they put those electric wires around Gunzilla, the fact that they didn't kill him, not only did they not kill him, the electricity made him stronger. And I think that's what they've done to Donald Trump, is that they put him in a position. He is even more popular than he was. He has more of a lead upon his opposition in the Republican Party. And he's now leading Biden in the polls, the last polls that some of the pollers have taken. And so they may have put him on if they don't take him out, they may have put him on a real road to become the president all over again.
And Reverend Dr. Yeary, the Espionage Act is very interesting. We had Chip Gibbons, the policy director for Defending Rights and Dissent, one of the top organizations in that space. They are on the front lines of fighting for Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning and people who are who expose the malfeasance of the status quo, bad things that they do, right? And so it's very interesting, because that's what the Espionage Act has been used to do historically. Chip really gave us a wonderful overview of that, as he often does when he comes on the show. And Chip was saying that, it's not even that these are political ideologues. This Espionage Act has always been applied against people who have gone against the status quo. And he was not making excuses for Donald Trump. He was just saying that's what happens here. But what were your impressions first of yesterday and of this aggressive stance that the former president said he's going to take against the sitting president and his son?
Well, good morning, Santita, and good morning to my big brother and those who share on this platform. Let me start with, as we talked about a couple of days ago, I'm still planning to order my popcorn machine because this drama will continue to play out from now until January 20th of 2025. And what you saw yesterday was in the protection of the country being prosecuted by the same entity that protects him in a framework that is going to be very interesting to see how the federal process plays out, and it's going to, by and large, overshadow any other state prosecution that might come. So as of yesterday, folks aren't really going to pay attention to what's going to happen or what's happening in New York. It's going to take a lot of the momentum away from Connie Willis in Georgia to talk about what happened with the election. Folks are really not going to pay any of that any attention because the battle lines have been drawn, and basically everybody that has thrown their hat into the ring on the Republican side, they just got nullified yesterday because, remember, the former president is a master at getting free media. He doesn't have to raise money to be the star of his own show. The cameras will now follow him everywhere and hang on his every word. So now he has created a platform that counters the platform of the sitting president, who also has cameras following him everywhere, press on the lawn. They follow him when he goes to dinner. They sit in vans waiting to see if he's going to say something. So now you've got the two competitors for 2024 already set. You can have all of the primaries you want. If Trump decides he's not going away, even if we were to look mathematically and see that somewhere down the road some other candidate might get enough delegates, that I don't see that being even feasible at this point. So now you've got Chris Christie and Mike Pence and that crew, those folks that are coming along. They now have to figure out how are they going to become relevant in a discussion where relevance doesn't even matter. So that's one. Procedurally, it was what you would expect, right? If typically with white-collar crimes, you negotiate a time to turn yourself in, you go before a judge. Nobody expected the judge to put any terms or conditions on his ability to move freely because he moves with the Secret Service, right? And the Secret Service ain't going away. It's not like it's an entity that he can fire. So the government can keep tabs on him. He can go wherever he wants to go. It doesn't really amount to much. But I think the real piece that is going to be telling is now the government has to prove its case. Remember, the president has a shroud of innocence. He is presumed innocent, and the government must prove his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt for each and every element, for each and every offense that they have charged. And if they fail at any level for any one of those offenses, at any level, any one of the parts of the offenses, he must be found not guilty. Now, here's the drama. If the prosecution fails, you can charge whatever. But to prove it to a jury and who's going to be what we say in the box is where it's going to get very interesting. So what I came away with, even with his comments about it being a sad day, the propaganda is now going to fly. And I do think that President Biden is going to have to figure out how he defends himself against the personal assault about his issues, his family's issues, and his son's issues. That's where the intrigue is going to be. So, short answer is, I'm ordering popcorn machine. I'm going to have a lot of popcorn. I need a whole lot of butter. And I will just figure out what I'm going to drink on any given day according to what mood I'm in. But you've not seen anything yet. Yesterday was just the beginning. And I think the real battle, the real fight is going to be less in the streets and more in terms of what's happening in the propaganda space between the two sides.
I mean, Dwight, what do you see happening? Because he said he is coming for Biden, and then you saw Chuck Grassley on the floor of the Senate saying that we do have information on monies that, on monies that the Ukraine that this gas company have paid the Bidens. If that is true, do you think that will have an impact upon, just upon this whole narrative?
What you did was you gave the Republicans something to talk about. And so, as the song says, and so they already begin to have hearings on the Biden case. They swear they have tapes on his son and cutting deals with different countries for political favor. And they say that that Biden is implicated in the tapes. Also, they put the FBI on blast, and they had them provide some of the information that they had supposed to have been collecting, and found out that in these non-classified documents that some of the information has been redacted, which is very, very, very strange and very, very confusing. And so they're at the point now is they're talking about cutting the salary from the head of the FBI until he complies with their interviews. I mean, this thing is going to get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. You have the implication, not stated, that there's a whole constituency out there that is armed, that is willing to fight for the preservation of democracy in Trump's behalf and in behalf of what they see is selective prosecution, who they really believe that the government has turned on them and they have a right as a militia to fight back. Many of whom, ironically, are with the government themselves. So a lot of the militia crowd are policemen and soldiers and ex-military guys. And so, I mean, this thing is going to get deeper and deeper. Hollywood couldn't have created a plot like this.
When you say it's going to get deeper and deeper, what do you mean? I mean, how will this play out? Just make it real for us.
Well, what you saw yesterday was managed propaganda. Is if you notice that nobody but Fox carried Trump's speech. And Biden made a speech at the same time. They tried to make an announcement on the information they got on Biden, and then at the same time, they announced this indictment on Trump. And you really have a war, an internal war between government agencies and the Democrat and Republican parties. How intense and how deep that war goes is the variable. It's whether that becomes, as you just said, a political approach to it, whether it's a legal approach and you fight it out in the courts, whether or not it's propaganda and you fight it out in the political process, or whether or not it gets violent, which is also an option. And so, like Yuri, I'm waiting to see how these layers play themselves out. I think if you keep having, a implicit boycott from the liberal networks of doing anything in terms of these Biden hearings is going to keep suggesting that this is really a government plot to take Trump out.
Mm-hmm.
And as it is now, 86% of the Republicans already believe that that's what this is about. And so there is a part of that constituency. Some are pro-Trump. Some are just, malicious. Some are just extreme. Some are just right-wing guys. Some are Nazis that really believe that the deep state is in the process of trying to create a one-world government that they control, and that is anti-Christian, anti-democracy, anti-American, and that crowd is kind of a religious crowd who see this as an end-day proposition, are willing to fight to the death.
Well, what about him putting Christians in it yesterday?
It's about more than...
Did you in his comments, he put Christians in it yesterday. They're coming after Christians. Okay, I said, oh, wait a minute. What is he saying here?
Yeah, because this is more than about Trump. They see this as about religious... They see this as end-time prophecy. And they see this as the Antichrist organizing a third-world government to assault their fundamental belief in Christ and the right to exercise, freedom of religion. And so they feel like they're under assault. I mean, I was watching some of the other stuff that had happened over the years, like Waco and Ruby Ridge, and the mentality of those crowds that really are preparing for the end times, who are hunkered in some bunker somewhere in Idaho, and eating out of pots and fully independent, because they really see this as something out of Revelation. And this is the last Trump sounding, to quote the Bible. This thing, that's why I say it's very layered and can go in a variant of directions, variable of directions.
Well, I mean, Reverend Dr. Urey, what about Jake Tapper ordering, Jake Tapper of CNN ordering the control room to cut the video of former President Trump after he was with his supporters? I said, that's not the thing you do. You report the news. You don't shape it, even though we know that's what they do. But I have a couple of minutes here before we go to break. I said, y'all are not being smart. This is ridiculous.
Well, we know that CNN has had its share of challenges here recently, trying to figure out where it lands in the propaganda plan for the 2024 election. So it doesn't surprise me that they're still trying to find their way, almost like they're trying to fly a plane with no gyro. They're trying to figure out how they get back to Cardinal North. So that part's not shocking. But to the propaganda issue, remember, this is about military secrets. You asked a few minutes ago about the Espionage Act. The core of the Espionage Act is working through the issues of the risk of exposing the militaristic base of the American democracy. And at its core, if the secrets get out and you understand that the military-industrial complex that continues to drive the budget, continues to fuel these wars, continues to destabilize global economies and governments, that's really what's at the core. And if it continues to come out, this propaganda war could really be the thing that catalyzes an eruption of a revolt against the militarism of the American empire, against the interests of the people. And so a popular uprising may actually be brewed out of this And it's not something that they see now. This is less about what's happening between Trump and Biden. It is more about, can the government protect itself from the exposure of what has really fueled the American enterprise since its inception, which is the funding of a military that is able to impose its will on the world.
Well, there's a lot that's been going on. I mean, there are many layers to this, as Dwight McKee says. As you are saying, Reverend Dr. Yeary, joining Reverend Dr. Yeary and Dwight McKee will be Reverend Jeanette Wilson and Attorney Darrell Jones. I want to hear from you. Robert Williams and Tracy Lewis and all of you, my morning stars, Kenneth Rush, Dave Dowell and Linear Bob, all of you, call on in. Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Let's talk about this. July 15th through the 19th, the Rainbow Push International Conference. We hope that you will be there. We'll be talking about these issues and more together in one space. It's one thing to talk over here on the chat board. It's another thing to really be together. And that's what we're going to be doing July 15th through the 19th. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. You guys, I think they are about to get down like you would not believe. I really think this is about to get real nasty.
Yeah. Did you interview the FBI yesterday?
I'm sorry?
Did you see Cruz's interview with the head of the FBI yesterday?
No, I did not. Was it a committee hearing?
About how he virtually declared war on the FBI.
Oh, wait, you know what? I read about it. Tell me, what did you see? Dwight?
Oh, the hearings. He said, you all are obfuscating. You all are one-sided. You all protected Hillary and focused on Trump is undemocratic, and we ain't gonna take it. And if because they gave him those redacted documents. And he said, you all going to either be fair or not be at all. And the next meeting we have, we're going to talk about how to take away your funding, because they got the power to do that. Because, they hold the purse. And it was real ugly.
Oh, boy. Well, Reverend?
Yeah, that's interesting that Cruz would be the one to raise that, because, Cruz is one of the Democrats' top priority for a possible pickup if they could mobilize in Texas, because Cruz's seat is up next year. So it's going to be very interesting that you're going to see the tentacles from the fight at the top to see how it impacts these other races, particularly in the Senate, and drives turnout. This notion that, if you ask black folk, do you trust the FBI? Then you get a clear answer. So it's not shocking to a whole lot of folks that the FBI might be corrupt in how it handles itself in treating certain parties. But at the core, remember, this is a fight about who gets to control the military. Make no mistake about this. So they can't really do too much to Biden, because just like President Trump was protected while he was the sitting president, President Biden is too. So there's only so much that you're going to get the FBI to do against Biden's person. Now, against Biden's family, they don't have the same protection. But the other thing that would be very interesting is that this has to play out in such a way that the Republicans give themselves a shot to get the commander-in-chief.
Attorney Jones and Reverend Wilson on.
The presidency holds. The key to it is the ability to control the movement and the utility of the United States Armed Forces. Whoever gets that really has their finger on the scale to control what happens. Whether or not you would use the military against a popular uprising, if there were to be a revolt, remains to be seen. We haven't yet seen the need for that. The paramilitary, the police, the law enforcement side, and the National Guard, somewhat of a hybrid of the military, they've been able to kind of quell most of these civil disturbances, is what they called it when I was in the reserves. So in this process, what this is really coming down to is the issue of the geopolitics of military influence and profit taking. So Ukraine.
Yeah, and that's what makes this a good point, Yuri. But what makes this so crucial, and why it's going to be really come down to a war, a propaganda war, is because too much mud on Biden puts him in quicksand. He's already at about 40%, and already is peaked, and so any adjustment in his relationship with the middle of the road, the independent crowd, or the conservative Democratic crowd, can really kind of take him out of here. He does not have a lot of margin for error, and that's why it's going to become a propaganda thing. Because I think if they feel like if they can knock him down about 5 points, this thing is going to be over. It's going to be interesting to see how Trump begin to appeal to black people and make his plight become a martyr and make his plight an extension of how black people were treated, how the FBI treated Dr. King.
Well, he already started
and
that.
Meg Evers and Jesse Jackson, that crowd.
Well, you remember, he started that. He started that during his presidency, when he released some information on Dr. King, which was to let you know, look at what they did to him. This is what they're doing to me. And you're going to see more of that. And he doesn't have to be president for that to happen. Oh, yeah, he doesn't have to be president for that to happen. You can have people inside the FBI who release that because everybody's got their allies. This is a real big fight. It's way above my pay grade. Attorney Jones, Reverend Wilson, Dwight McKee, and Reverend Dr. Yuri. But we need to pay attention to all of it because you don't know where you're going to land, everybody, in this fight. Because it is getting this ugly. You're right, Ted, because I read the story that Ted Cruz accused the FBI, I think it was the deputy director.
1 minute.
There it is, of covering up details of this $5 million Biden bribery scheme. And Chuck Grassley went on the floor of the U.S. Senate talking about it. And this is, and then you see Jake Tapper doing something to me that was just really not smart. It was just unethical. Cut away from Donald Trump. I don't want you determining what I see on the news. That's not your job. And that's why the corporate media are not
30 seconds
playing all these games as if the media is liberal. The owners are not liberal. They're not even ideological. They're into profit, and they are also into keeping the status quo in place by any means necessary. Ugh, here we go. Oh boy, we are in for it. Let me hear you, Jeanette.
Well, first
okay, now hold on. Stand by. Honey, just doing a mic check. Daryl, let me hear you.
Hey, yep, good morning.
Okay, very good. Let's come to you. Stand by.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, Wednesday, June 14, 2023. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you today here on the Santita Jackson Show on the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, WCPT and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Somebody, I can hear something in the background. Okay. And the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Santita Jackson and Friends page. So let's get to it. We've been talking about yesterday. President Trump was arrested. He was fingerprinted. Boy, all of that. Where is all of this going? Now you've got the FBI under attack by Ted Cruz, who's saying, wait a minute, you need to tell the whole story. If you want to come after Trump, you need to come after the Bidens. Boom. President Trump said, if I become president, I'm going after the Bidens. Well, you got the Republicans in Congress already doing that. And what are the substance of all of these charges? And how is it that so many of these top secret documents are able to walk away with people who've held office? I don't care if they're Democrats or Republicans. Indeed, when you heard former President Trump speak last night, he said George W. Bush has done it. Clinton has done it. You know, people walk away with their papers. Indeed, if you want to find out about the Cuban Missile Crisis, you need to go to the Kennedy Presidential Library because they get classified documents that are classified no more. Whew. It's a lot. So I want to hear what your thoughts are. Call me at 773-FREEDOM. 773-FREEDOM. No, that's Rainbow Push. 773-763-WCPT. 773-763-9278. I want to know what your thoughts are about this trial that's coming. Will it run through the campaign? How will it impact the campaign on the Republican side and even on the Democratic side? How will these investigations that are taking place in Congress that are more and more with Republican majorities, how are certainly loud Republican forces as they focus in on the Bidens, what's going to happen? You tell me. 773-763-9278, 763-WCPT. Let's get to some of these headlines so we can get on with the rest of the show. Everybody is talking about former President Donald Trump pleading not guilty to 37 criminal charges during an arraignment yesterday in a Miami federal courthouse after being indicted over his alleged mishandling of classified documents. It's the first time in American history that a former president has faced federal charges. He described the indictment, quote, as the most evil and heinous abuse of power and called the charges, quote, fake and fabricated. We'll be talking about that in just a few minutes. More than 10,000 troops from around the globe are participating in, quote, Air Defender 2023, close quote, NATO's largest air defense exercise in its history. This week, hundreds of warplanes from NATO's different nations took to the skies over Germany to simulate this alliance's response to an attack on a member country. Grocery prices are rising again, according to new data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Index, the key measure of inflation. Overall, grocery prices were nearly 6% more expensive in May. And that comes on the heels of an analysis that was released yesterday that shows that executives at some of the top publicly traded companies in the United States aren't being coy about using their pricing power to hike costs for consumers and boost their bottom line, their revenues and profits, which are then dished out to wealthy shareholders. The progressive watchdog group Accountable.us noted in its study that some of the, quote, largest general consumer S&P 500 companies have admitted to benefiting from increased prices as their net profits increased year over year, and they rewarded shareholders with billions in handouts. Kimberly-Clark, PepsiCo, General Mills, Tyson Foods, and other major U.S. companies have hiked their prices to pad their profits and to make you poorer. Everybody, congratulations go to the Golden Knights. They are now the Stanley Cup champions, everybody. Congratulate them. Last night, they closed it out. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your thoughts about this particular case. I want to hear your thoughts about this particular case. Do you think that Trump is being treated fairly? Do you think that this is going to hurt the Bidens? What do you think is going to happen? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. I do hope that you will join us at the Rainbow Push International Conference, July 15th through the 19th here in Chicago. Go to rainbowpush.org or call us at 773-FREEDOM. In the WNBA, the Fever will be playing the Sky tomorrow. On Friday, the Lynx will be facing off against the Sparks. And we're going to have a high of 67 degrees here in Chicago, partly cloudy. It is completely cloudy right now. In Minneapolis, St. Paul, 87 degrees and clear. Major League Baseball, the Twins 7, the Brewers 5, the Cubs 11, the Pirates 3, and the Dodgers 5. The White Sox 1. And those are the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. What is going to become of all of this? I do think that, I think you're right, Dwight McKee. I think this is about to get really, really, really interesting, and I think it's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly, and we saw some of it yesterday when Jake Tapper told the control room at CNN in the middle of the broadcast, take Donald Trump off of here. We don't want to see him meeting his supporters after he has come out of the courthouse. What do you think about that? Do you think he should have done that? 773-763-9278. I don't. I think you need to tell the whole story. Don't act like he's living in isolation. He's not living in isolation. He got 75 million votes for everybody. That's the highest vote total for any second-place finisher in the history of American presidential politics. He is not an insignificant figure. He is leading Biden in the polls. This is not my wish. These are the facts. So that is not CNN's job. It's not Jake Tapper's job to tell me what I can and cannot see. And it makes me look at him and go, okay, how are you shaping the news? I don't want that from you. I don't want you to make up my mind for me. I want you to get out of my mind, give me the facts, I'll make up my mind for myself. I'm a grown person. That is the role of media. That's the role of the press. Now, media, well, they play a lot of games with you, and that's what we're seeing. And that's why they are mistrusted and distrusted to such a great degree. Indeed, the more opposition that former President Trump faces, the more popular he's becoming, and he knows it. That's from a guest essay in the New York Times. And now, there's just a lot going on. So, we've been talking with Dwight McKee and Reverend Dr. Todd Deary about this. We're welcoming, of course, Attorney Darrell Jones to the show, Transformative Justice Coalition Chair, brilliant voting rights advocate and lawyer, civil rights lawyer, and, of course, Reverend Jeanette Wilson. In a couple of minutes, I want each of you to weigh in on what we saw yesterday. Reverend Wilson.
Well, I think what we're witnessing now is two things. Former President Trump is dealing with two issues: legal attacks and his political agenda. And what he has been able to do is sway the court of public opinion. There's a whole body of people that are following him. So when he says, I'm not guilty, they're just attacking me, there's a body of people that believe that, they support that. He's their guy. Meanwhile, the legal process is moving along. However, Trump is smart enough to know if he delays the trial, if he can delay the trial till after the primary, he wins. He can pardon everybody. He can do a lot of things. And I sense a delay. There's no court date set. He appears before a judge that he appointed, basically. So the question is she going to follow the law, or is she going to follow the man that put her in that position? And that's why this idea of who is elected to the Senate is very important, because they confirm presidential appointments, or they keep them from being confirmed, like what is happening now. So we're playing political football in a legal matter, which happens all the time. These judges are people. They don't always follow the law. They follow the politics that cause them to be where they are. And we keep thinking that we have this great legal system that is pure and sanitized, and these are just great legal scholars. No, these are political operatives who interpret the law in the way that is in the best interest of their people. So I think Biden has a problem. I think as a nation, we have the possibility, and I think Dr. Deary and I talked about this long before when Trump was first elected. This guy's following Hitler's playbook, Hitler and Stalin. You take control of images, the media. You take control of the military, which is what you all were talking about earlier. And you manage the justice system, which Trump tried to do when he was president. He appointed more federal judges than anybody in the history of America. He was able to nominate and get them appointed. No other president in our lifetime has been able to do that, because they didn't focus on that. He signed a ton of executive orders. And the thing about this case, the hearing, the arraignment was for his co-conspirator, who did not get arraigned because he said, I need to get a Florida attorney. Mm-hmm. And so it's just so much to this. I don't want to go on. I want to hear what Darrell has to say.
Yeah, because, but I would just ask you, do we have to go to Stalin and Hitler? Even Elizabeth Warren said that the American system is rigged. I mean, we don't have to leave the United States to look at anyone. I mean, because you've seen the system has been rigged against disadvantaged people ever since. Right? I mean, if we don't, Stalinists, no. I mean, this is the American system.
The system's rigged, but but we did not have a system of a dictator. This is clearly dictatorship where I do what I want, I classify, unclassify, I take what I want. Nobody can tell me anything.
But wasn't that apartheid America? Right?
Yeah.
I'm
But
just
we
saying,
thought we were in the land of the free.
Well, no,
we think we're in the land of the free, the home of the brave. We're not.
I'm saying we had to fight our way through that. That's my only point, that America's done that too.
I get your point, but I'm saying right now we don't have a free press. You talk about the corporatocracy in the media. You look at Trump just said, "You won't let me on Twitter. You shut me down. I form my own media operation." So we're in some very dangerous times, and those who speak freely for the civil rights and rights of others, that's a problem. Remember, that's when the FBI under remember when they
Hoover and everybody else.
J. Edgar Hoover, they were tapping in phones, your father and other civil rights activists.
Wilson.
This is what we're moving back to.
It never stopped.
It didn't, but what I'm saying is it's never been as visible since the death of Dr. King as it is now.
Well, you know what, and I think that's the danger.
We had moved beyond.
I never thought maybe because I come out the house I come out of, I knew we'd never moved beyond it. I mean, I hear you. I think that, we've had some significant victories, but and I know there's some good people in the FBI, there's some good people everywhere, some good people in the CIA and all of that. But they have been shaped by J. Edgar Hoover, and they still spy on people on the left. They leave all the right-wingers alone, maybe it's because they calculated. I don't know. Attorney Jones. I'm being a little cheeky with Reverend Wilson, but not really, because I come from this civil rights space, and I have lived with these people. And I have lived with people who the way they moved made me go, I wonder if... I just had to assume that most of my encounters were with people from the intelligence community. I mean, because that's what I've seen. I grew up with that. Literally grew up with it. So, Attorney Jones, what are we looking at in your estimation?
Well, Santita, I think I put it best this way. If you got yourself a nice hot cup of herbal tea and some biscuits, you could sit down because you would think you're getting ready to read a great fictional book on what's happening in the United States politically. And the scary part is that it's not fictional though. It's nonfiction. It's real and it's happening in real time. I could not have been more disheartened. And I by no means am a Trump supporter, but I could not have been more disheartened to sit and watch a former president of my country have to go to be arraigned for a felony criminal offense. It's disheartening. It's disheartening. Knowing all the great things that I believe this country to stand for and the great things that the country has done. And granted, we're a work in progress and all the, all the problems, all the work that are there. But when I sit back and I look at this, the purpose of our elected officials are to bring calm. Right? Not to create mayhem and confusion, which is what we see happening here. It's disheartening to watch all of this occur. And while we're watching what's happening with former President Trump, we're seeing his numbers surge in polls from the Republican Party with regards to their support of him. And then we add on to that the judge that happens to receive the case is now Judge Cannon that was appointed by him, that she's not recusing herself from the case. It reads like a fictional novel that, you just can't believe that this is the United States of America, that we're seeing special treatment being given to the former president. So everything that I, as a kid, coming through the educational process, learned right about everyone being abiding by the law, going by the law, everyone being treated similarly or close to similarly as the laws being applied. You're watching all of that just being taken apart, all of it, and it's just incredibly, incredibly disheartening. But what it does do, it does, certainly reinforce the reason that I always tell people, and I said it at the beginning, to grab your seatbelt. This is going to be a wild ride. But more importantly, This is the part of the reason that we've got to be certain that we're voting for candidates that are supporting our interests, because we need to be certain that when the judges are being appointed, that they're being appointed by people that hold the interests of the community at heart. This is what's concerning to me. So when I sit back and I watch everything that's happening in this Trump case, it's disheartening. It's disheartening from the sense of watching the country.
2 callers total.
Of watching, knowing that people weren't out there pushing the vote. And this is how this former president got into office with all the shenanigans that were going on there. It's disheartening. And I've got to use it as a learning tool to say, we've got to use this to say, this is the importance of elections. This is the importance of being certain that everyone exercises that right to vote, be certain that we have people in place that won't put us through situations like we find ourselves into right now, Santita. Just disheartening, the attack on the FBI, all of it just incredibly disheartening, Santita.
Well, look, deal with the FBI. I think saying pull them out.
Yes, Sister.
Yeah.
Sister Jackson.
Yes.
Trump didn't put Ellsberg. Trump didn't put Ellsberg in jail. Trump didn't run Paul Robeson out the country. Trump didn't put Assange under house arrest.
Make Dr. King live through living hell, try to make him kill himself like that, maybe?
Try to kill himself. Yeah, this ain't new. This is what this country has been about since it's been a country. This, if you understand the real history of this country, it is more transparent because you got more media, and it's not as undercover as it was before because we're in an information age. But the approach is the same as always been, and the people who've been in charge has been, since this has been a country, conspiratorial, one-sided, oppressive, and would do anything to keep power. There have never been a treaty that the United States government has made that it has kept, ever. They have never seriously talked about compensating us for what they put us through, and for everything from the Tuskegee experiment to what they did in terms of black women being castrated. I mean, come on, y'all. We ain't that naive, I'm sure.
Reverend Uri? Because Brad, I'm going to come to you on the other side of the break. Well, okay, Reverend Dr. Uri, you were about to say something?
Yeah, just real quick. When we think about the preamble to the Constitution, the first 3 words, we the people, we often focus on the people. I'm trying to figure out who it's we, because we contextualizes who's included in the people. When we go back to that, we talk about originalism in the courts. We talk about the politics of America. And this is the Big Brother Dwight's point. This notion that somehow or other there's this pure sense of a constitutional democracy. This whole thing, the criticism of historians and social scientists is this thing was birthed out of corruption. It was birthed out of a deviation from what was the experience over in England. They didn't like having a monarch. They wanted a shared corruption, not an absolute corruption. And so this process has been, how do we control the wealth of the nation? We give ourselves the right of conquest, the right to arbitrarily declare war. That's what Manifest Destiny was. That's what the Indian Removal Act was. That's what this whole notion of the Homestead Act was. We get to take what we want, we get to give it to whom we want it to, and we can enforce and protect ourselves in the process. And so when you look at Judge Cannon, let's remember now, Judge Cannon was the one who was going to be the overseer of the documents at the beginning, until the appeals court in Atlanta overruled her. Now she sits as the one to moderate his criminal trial. This is all about, don't get caught on the name. The whole thing at the core that they're trying to protect is this shell game of a democracy that they've been running on the people. And if the people don't do their part to push back on it while this drama's unfolding in the courtroom, if we don't get to Darrell Jones's point, if we don't make sure that we show up in the numbers up and down the ballot to protect ourselves, from this onslaught of the corruption that we see in government places, then we're going to continue to find ourselves left susceptible and even offended by what we see taking place on live, quote-unquote, news, which is real TV. Popcorn, biscuits, tea, crumpets, whatever you got to get. This drama's coming. The question's going to be, are we going to yield to it? Or are we going to resist it and make sure that the interests of the people don't get consumed in this voracious kind of appetite to see what's going to happen between Biden and Trump?
Well, call us, everybody. We want to know what your thoughts are. 773-763-9278. 773-763-WCPT. You want to know what you're thinking today. I tell you, I don't look at, I understand Stalin, I understand Hitler, I understand all of these people. But I know these people studied us to model their heinous deeds. If you wanted apartheid in South Africa, they studied the American Jim Crow system. Nazi POWs who were brought to the United States were shocked by how black people were treated in the South. They were like, whoa, we're not even doing this over in Germany. So y'all, wait a minute, don't leave America. You taught people. Dwight, I got a little break. Dwight, I got a little break. Just remember that. Y'all ain't got to leave here. Stay right here. We're in the process of getting better and getting well, healing. But you ain't got to leave here. Stay right here. That's part of our problem. We don't want to deal with what was done right here to indigenous people first and everybody else. And until we do that, we're not going to get well. We're not going to be right. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Okay, Dwight, were you going to say something, or would you like to wait until we get... you can repeat it on the other side. Dwight?
Yeah, I can repeat it, but I mean, Hitler slept with Henry Ford's book on his lap every night. Apartheid was set up based on American segregation system. I mean, we act like we are... we got clean hands in this thing. When in many...
I think what happened, we have been indoctrinated, and we don't want to admit it. The American propaganda system is much better than any of the other countries because we have believed in the myth that we're living in a democracy and that we have some basic rights because it appears that we have some freedoms that Trump has just come up and said, look, this is the real deal. You've been living in a fantasy world. Yeah. And I should never forget when he became president, remember he said, am I the president? He immediately started signing executive orders and moving to take charge.
Ms. Jackson just sent you a text message.
He did secretly. He just public with the stuff.
Okay.
And he said then, this is a rigged system, y'all.
Okay.
See, I'm in the system.
Okay, I'll announce it, okay?
I ain't no outsider looking in. I'm telling y'all, this is rigged.
And you know, and I think that we're more mistrustful of it when someone from the so-called right. Trump has never been a true right-winger, okay? He was going to run for president under the banner of Ross Perot's party. He is a transactional man. When he ran in 2016, the progressives had been eaten up by Bernie. The women and the traditional Democrats had been eaten up by Hillary. He took what was left. I'm not making excuses for him. I think, though, you have to follow Dwight's example, and an example, quite frankly, that I was taught from both my parents, particularly my father. Do not get emotional about your politics. It will cloud your judgment. Reverend Frank Watkins, God rest his soul, don't let your judgment be clouded by your emotions, y'all. This is a little bit, Jeanette, you know that. I mean, we had the privilege of being raised and bred by the
growing up.
And so it's like, wait. No, you're being too emotional. And now we're saying, oh, well, the FBI told doctors, they tried to have Dr. King kill himself. They tried to destroy his marriage. Are you serious? Today, they investigate people who are peace activists. They investigate black activists. That is what they do. They just ran up on a black man who's in his 80s in Philadelphia, who is a black nationalist leader. Are you serious? What is wrong with you? Please don't do that. and I'm not saying a broken car can be right twice a day. I ain't mad about that. But yeah, we got to stop this. Oh, you're attacking the integrity of them. Are you for real? What integrity?
Yeah. Grandma always said you expect nothing from a pig but a grunt.
Ooh. How about that? No, but a grunt. Yeah.
So if we, I don't care how much we try to change the appearance of it, the interpretation of it, if we don't change the essence of it, we're going to continue to get variations of the same plot over and over and over again.
And you know what? When you weaponize the FBI to attack anyone on the right or the left, I got a problem with it. I'm going to have a problem with it because it's not the right thing to do. It's just wrong, y'all. It is.
Why? Stand by, please.
And because
I don't think we're aware.
And because I've seen it happen, and because I've felt it, and we've seen it, we just cannot ignore it now. Stand by, everybody. We're coming up because I have, my
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
To a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Boy, oh boy, this is why you have to be on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and Santita Jackson and Friends. That's the only place I can accept friends, everybody. Because our crosstalk during the break is what you want to hear. My board op, Alex, is the best in the business. Let me just say that right now. He is. I can shut my eyes and do the show because he is just that excellent at what he does. We've been having some trouble with the phones because we've had a lot of callers this morning, and you all have been getting dropped, not by him, but there's something in our system that's not allowing the calls to be held. So I just wanted you to know that that is not something that we're doing here at the station. It's something that's happening to us. But I want to see if Brad is still there, Alex. Let me know if Brad is still there. We can go to him. Brad? Brad, how you doing, sweetie? What's on your mind?
I think what you're seeing with Trump and Republicans is a case of supreme arrogance that will render them stupid simply like it did Hitler, even to an extent Stalin, that they believe their way was the only way. And part of this is because they believe that white Americans are the only true. Yeah.
Okay, now wait. Now you have some.
White Americans
hold on a minute.
are the only true Americans.
Brad, we couldn't hear you in the back. There was something going on in the background. Okay, if you could start again. Okay.
Real quick. They believe they are the only true Americans, and that people like you, people like me that are liberal, not to mention your ethnicity, are not true Americans. And you know, and I know most people hate, they detest people who are arrogant. And that's going to be their downfall, because when you are supremely arrogant, you discount what your opponents are capable of. And as Dr. King said, the long arc of history bends toward justice. And we make up more than they do. We need to get out and vote. We need to show our superior numbers as we began to in 2018, 2020, and 2022.
Okay, get out and vote, everybody. Brad, I want to thank you for calling in. I think we have Dynamo Dave from Minnesota. Dynamo Dave, are you still there?
Oh, yes. Good morning. How's the sweetness, sunshine of Chicago doing?
Oh, you are my sweetie. What's on your mind today, Dave? Dynamo Dave? Dynamite Dave.
So, oh, there you go, Tom. Hey, two things. The Republicans, or the right, used to always be the law and order, but it seems like when it comes to, what's his name, Cruz, calling out the FBI, for their stuff, and it's like, wait a minute, there's something wrong there. You know what I mean? It's like the script has been flipped. The other thing is, how is it that the right is able to kind of control the narrative all the time, as far as what's reported and what's the news and whatever, in terms of, and for Trump to get center stage all the time. Mm-hmm. I know they got a bunch of right-wing think tanks, and they get together and they say, this is the message that they bring up Congress.
They do that, but hold on, Dynamo Dave. They have Trump is a creature of the corporatocracy. Okay? They were asking him 40 years ago, when he was a local real estate developer in New York, if he was going to run for president, on Oprah Winfrey's show. Number one, how does a local real estate developer in New York, however glamorous, and however glamorous your wife is, how do you end up on Oprah's show? Okay, 40 years ago. So this is not someone who was out of the mix. This is someone who was Roy Cohn's protege. This is not someone who has been out of the loop and out of the mix. And I think that we need to kind of take our partisanship out of this discussion, because the corporatocracy has adherents on the right and the left, right? You got the Democratic Party and the Republican Party who won't let anybody else on the stage. I'm so glad that Dr. Cornel West is running, but I'm so mad that he can't get on the stage. Because the Democrats and the Republicans are shaking hands and they're like, no, it's only us. As if they're the only people in town who have ideas. Mm-hmm. And then you have your own battles within those parties who don't let progressives and people with different ideas on the stage. So, I think we have to step back and look at the rot that's being exposed in the system. My problem with with Republicans and people on the so-called right, because I think more people are more of a mix ideologically, is that they cannot see that what they believe is being done to them was already done to us over here on this side. And so they're missing a whole, so that's why I'm saying you can't be a respecter of persons, you got to be a respecter of principle. Either you're going to be against rot and corruption or you're not. Either you don't want government to be weaponized or you do. It's not black, it's not gray, it's black or white. And if you feel that it's been weaponized against Donald Trump and people, then you need to look at how it was weaponized against the left, how it was weaponized against Dr. King, and be mad about that too, today. Because it's still being weaponized against the left today.
You're right. The corporatocracy, they actually were courting Trump in 2004 until Kerry got was the leading guy. Mm-hmm. Trump was considered to be a Democratic candidate in 2004.
Sure.
So what does that tell you? It tells you...
New caller. Reverend Wilson is on. I'll call her back after these callers.
If you figure one side's kind of a little more onto things, and I know Trump's not going to appeal to people that are on that one side as far as how he comes across. And whereas he's charismatic to draw in a different crowd, and that's why they put him over on the Republican side.
Well,
there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes.
He ran for what was left. I don't think he's that into parties, and most people in power are not. The party is the mean; it's not the end. It's just something. It's something because in fact, he didn't get people from inside the party. He brought people to the party, like Bernie, like Reverend. And there's some people who and that's where their power comes from, not from being insiders, but from being outsiders who bring their power to the party. Now, what Reverend did, unlike others and Bernie, was try to leave people in place to help reshape the party, to make the party expand. And the Democrats never wanted that. And so many of the people who we ended up putting in there became part of the establishment and became part of the problem, quite frankly. So, that's the problem.
He also took the Bernie Sanders narrative in terms of appealing to the little people, as it were, the powerless, but then, included race on that. Same playbook as Tucker Carlson's doing today. And so rather than, uniting us as a nation, like Bernie's trying to do, he's telling us to choose a side, and that, of course, that's what the corporatocracy, they don't want us to all get along.
But you know what, Dynamo Dave? Call them out on it. Because you know what? The Democrats have played games. I mean, come on, Sister Soldier, that was just as racist as could be. And that was on the Democrats. They all played this game, and it is, and we are poorer for it. You know, I mean, George H.W. Bush did it. I mean, they all do it. So, I mean, I'm not willing to call out the Republicans and not call out the Democrats. You know, I mean, just we've got to stop that. Either I mean, race is not the problem. Racism is. My race is not a problem. Somebody else's racism is the problem.
Right.
But Dynamo, you want to have anything to say before I have to move to the next caller, my sweet?
No, I just want to thank you for always assembling such a great panel. I learned so much from you guys. I'm so thankful and grateful for your show.
Oh, I love you, Dynamo. And Dynamite Dave. I think I have to rename him. He's my little stick of dynamite. Every time I hear from him, it makes me feel good. Sending you much love, my Dynamo Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, sweetie. Paul from Seattle. Paul, what's on your mind, sweetie?
Good morning, Santita.
Good morning.
I want to just two things. Whether or not Donald Trump is getting a fair shake cannot be in comparison to any other cases. When we think about whether or not they keep claiming that the prosecution is politically motivated and it's a selective prosecution. Well, all prosecutions are selective in a sense because 95% of all criminal cases never go to trial. We only prosecute 5% of the criminal cases. 95% get a plea. So if the Trump team offered a plea, because it's up to the defense team, it's up to the defense to suggest a plea. If they did, the prosecutor rejected it because the prosecutor apparently feels that there is evidence. These are facts. There's real evidence to support that he could win a conviction. So, it's like this is the way it works. And in terms of the Trump, you're saying, the Trump supporters, there is in this. A lot of people don't realize it, but in this country, there is a whole culture that celebrates and romanticizes lawlessness. And I learned this. I had a lady friend who I used to go to dinner to her place, and she rented a room to a college student from Eastern Oregon. Nice young kid. And he told me, where he lives, the great heroes, the great American heroes are people like D.B. Cooper and Bonnie and Clyde and the great American bank robbers. And I said, why? What? Why? And he said, because they beat the system. And I said, no. Bonnie and Clyde were not Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty. Bonnie and Clyde were rotten, stinky, evil people who killed people and stole your money, people like yours and my money right out of the bank. But he didn't understand. To him, it was a romanticized story, and that's what Donald Trump has done. So he might be a corporatist, but he's hoodwinked his entire base to thinking that he's one of these romanticized lawless American heroes. And he's not. He's a punk. He's a punk, and he's an evil man. I'm sorry. That's what people have to realize. Okay. I mean, I hear you. Do you object to something that you've heard here today?
What? If I could speak on that one, I concede that he could be all of that. But what he has not done yet is said we had weapons of mass destruction where they didn't exist and bomb 200,000 people and then say, oops, oh, my bad. I mean, if we're going to be judgmental, let's look at the whole picture. I saw they manipulated General
Powell.
General Powell, and gave him all that bad intelligence to get in front of the American people and think he was telling the truth, knowing that they'd given him misinformation. And he never forgave himself for being misused like that.
Wait a minute, and people didn't either.
So you make Trump. Trump has some issues, but and it's some major issues, but they're no deeper and no more insidious than the presidents we've had since we started. Since George Washington had 300 slaves that was illegal for him to have, and he manipulated the system to keep those slaves, all the way down to Andrew Jackson, who told Indians to pack their stuff and walk across the country because he wanted to land. Come on, we can't be that naive.
Paul? Is Paul there? I mean,
Paul is off.
Okay, so what do you think we're missing, Dwight? And I want the whole panel to respond to that.
Truth. We so you get emotions so involved, and Rev said, we swept up in the propaganda, and we watch those Disney movies, and see all of and watch TV, and with John Wayne movies, and get caught up in the propaganda.
Reverend Wilson is off.
The truth, and it's only the truth can set you free. And so we just locked into nonsense. We locked into one of the reasons that the Republicans want to control the narrative about education, and they say that they don't want you to be woke, literally, because being woke means that you're informed and you know and you see through things. And so when the Republicans say that they don't want us to be woke, they'll say it, but the Democrats don't bring an alarm clock to the table either. And so, I mean, both sides play the same game. At some levels, the Democrats play it a little better than the Republicans because they know all the buzzwords for black people. And we're really swept up, today with them, when the fact of the matter is they were the major segregationists. And the guys that started the war and wanted to keep blacks into slavery. But we've kind of really forgotten about all that. I just never really knew it.
Reverend Jones, not Reverend Jones. Ooh, my goodness. I gave you a wife. I made you a minister. What am I doing to you? Attorney Jones, what's on your Oh, man, I'm sorry.
Well, Santita, I guess I end up underscoring a lot of what Dwight has said because, we get to the point where we've just got to understand that, if we want to effectuate change, right, as Dwight has, so eloquently stated, we got to first know our history, right? We're not going to know our history if the books are banned and we're not allowed to, have teachers teach it to us, and that's become reliant on our parents. They become reliant on our religious institutions, other ways to learn the history. But it's important that we get it. And once we understand the importance of not having books banned, the importance of learning our history, then we've got to be certain that we, and I say it and I say it and I say it again, we've got to be certain that we elect people that will put in place our concerns, our issues, that will stand up for what we believe we need. And that becomes extremely important because, I really do believe that, when we start, and again, I accept America warts and all. This is where I was born, this is where I'll die, this is where I'll be buried. So I need to be certain that I do what I can to effectuate the change for the generations that are behind me. And I think the best way for us to do that is through the power of that vote and being certain that we try to get put in place the changes that we need now. But we've got to get out and push the vote in order to do that, Cynthia.
Reverend Dr. Yeary? Are we missing anything? I mean, because it seems that we are, if you talk about the weaponization of the FBI, the CIA, if it's discussed from the right, black people, interestingly enough, are defending the FBI and the CIA, knowing the history, knowing it, having lived through it, still living through it, still living with the vestiges of it today, not just the vestiges, the practices. We only trust it if it comes from one direction. And I'm like, how can we cut through that?
Well, I think there are a couple of things about understanding trust and mistrust in terms of the messaging. If you think about pre-1960s, pre-Lyndon Johnson and the Great Society Plan, most black folks were Republicans because of the affinity with Lincoln. Mm-hmm. Because of the Great Society Plan, the Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, Fair Housing Act, the economic plans that came out of Lyndon Johnson's war on poverty and those kinds of things, you began to see a shift in the political loyalty. And so who you listen to began to change as well. Even though Lyndon Johnson had the specter of Vietnam all over his hands, because there was a wondering of why there were so many uprisings, you ended up with the Kerner report that then tells you publicly that the issue that affects black folks is white racism, and the conditions are tied to the economy. Let's fast forward. Today, the wealth gap is wider. We've come out of a pandemic. The suffering is broader. It reaches more people.
Blue collar.
Yet we're still living according to the mantra of the late Gil Scott-Heron, the revolution still is not being televised. And so what I would suggest is, while we're enamored by what we see on TV, pay attention to what they're not going to play on TV. Don't get caught up in the hype and chase the big shiny thing. Be attentive to what the distraction is all about. This is not about Trump and Biden. This is really not about whether you're going to send a former president to prison. That ain't what this is. What this really is to create such an intrigue that distracts us, that what they're really after is to reinforce the hierarchy and the priorities that are part of the fabric of the founding of this country, to protect it, lest there be a popular uprising that you said, Santita, is principled and not simply emotional. And so that's where this thing is, that I'm less concerned about what this is going to play out in court. They're going to figure out what the resolution is. The U.S. attorneys are going to figure out what they're actually after. This is really not about, are they going to put a former president in prison? Because if that's the case, what you going to do with the Secret Service? He's still a former president. So the issue becomes, what is this really about? What is the thing? The intrigue is, what is Hunter Biden doing? The wealth that Hunter Biden accrues has less to do with why the bottom 50% are suffering, why the top 1% are thriving. That's really the question that we have to stay focused on, lest we let the narrative be controlled about something that is so unimportant to the vast majority of folks, be they black, white, blue, purple, because suffering, poverty is a human condition. It's not a color. If we don't start addressing those things that disempower folks from being able to be the best version of themselves, and it comes at the expense of looking at all of this stuff and this intrigue that keeps us enamored and excited, if we take our eye off the prize, then what we do is we let this incident and this fight between corporate oligopolies that spend all of their money on bottom line trying to figure out who they're going to sell their wares to in terms of advertising, we then become intoxicated by the thing that's intended to kill us. Remember, carbon monoxide is odorless, colorless, tasteless, but it's deadly.
Yes.
Deadly.
That's right.
And by the time you see its effects, you're already gone. Let's not get caught up in the intrigue. Let's pay attention to the real deal and make sure that the interests of the masses don't get sacrificed in the intrigue of a trial.
Amen. Power is odorless, colorless, and it's empowering, or it's deadly. It's not Republican, it's not Democrat. No. We have had in our lifetime, certainly in mine, a man who was the chair of the Republican and Democratic parties. You remember that, Dwight? Robert Strauss?
Yep. Robert Strauss.
Robert Strauss. I mean, so get over that, y'all. Let me bring on, I've got about a minute. Robert, but I wanted the whole radio audience to hear you, sweetie. You can stay with us and talk for a little bit right after we get off the air, but Robert, the last minute belongs to you.
Well, I just wanted to clarify something real quick. Something was said about the Democratic Party being the Democratic Party that was that had us in slavery and all this other stuff. That party was the Dixiecrats. Mm-hmm. It was not the same current Democratic Party. You all know that, okay? The Republican Party is not the Abraham Lincoln Republican Party.
Right.
It's not. They are the Dixiecrats, okay? The parties changed names, and it happened under LBJ. Mm-hmm. Remember? He said you're going to move the South for a generation.
Absolutely.
That's just all I wanted to say. And that's what happened. They lost the South for a generation when he signed the Civil Rights Bill. And that's what happened.
And your point is very quickly.
But my point is that the Democratic Party that we have today is not that same party.
Okay,
But you know,
it's a
Robert, stay with us for a second, honey, because we do understand that. What we're doing is we're just talking about history and how it ties both parties. Oh, because we actually had more than the Republican and Democratic parties. And the fact is, no party is your friend. You are your best friend. You have to be your advocate, whether you have a Republican or Democrat in office. And that's something that I want to push forward, even as I am an independent Democrat. The fact is, I grew up in Chicago.
I too am.
I grew up in Chicago under a tyrannical Democratic Party, where you were forced to work with Republicans. They were more Lincoln Republicans here when I was growing up. A Jim Thompson, a Chuck Percy. So let's look at the whole thing. Let's deal with power and how we're going to make it no matter who's in office. How about that? Stay right there. Everybody, love you. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show on YouTube. You don't want to miss us. Love you, everybody. God bless. Okay, so Robert, I wanted you to continue because I wanted the panel to weigh in with you.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say one more thing, and
Do you want them to respond to you?
Off. No, I just wanted to say one more thing, and then I'll just take the rest off on YouTube. If you we're talking about history. Go back and look what happened. Okay, with Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. Okay, when the election between them two. Go back when we were talking about the Bushes, both of them. We're talking about Nixon. Every single one of those Republican presidents committed treason. And that's how we got Donald Trump today. They committed treason. They got into office by committing treason. Okay? They committed treason. Nixon said, hey, if he told them, we're going to keep the Vietnam War going, okay? And if you let me, I'm going to get in office, and then I'm going to end that Vietnam War. And then you move on to Ronald Reagan, and remember when they had those hostages? He said, hold on to those hostages until after the election, and I'll give you everything you want. Okay? And then you got Bush, Iran-Contra. You got a fake war by his son, and now you got Donald Trump.
Saying
you guys know
I'm saying we could actually go back
January?
further. You can go. I mean, the corruption and the rot didn't start there, though.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you I'm going by what I can see, what my history is, you know what I'm saying? What I remember.
I hear you, but let me just say this to you, Robert, just as you continue. It's not just, history doesn't begin and end with any of us. History is unbroken. And that's why it's important for you not to know just something that you can remember that happened in your lifetime. It's important for you to study and then know what happened, the things that happened that preceded you. Okay? So when you look at so I'm just saying, you're saying this is just what I remember. I'm just cautioning you.
Yeah, can I respond?
Sure.
Can I respond to Robert?
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Vietnam War started under the token resolution, which was a pretext that they made up. Is that not treason? We got under Clinton, who was a Democrat. We got the crime bill, who responsible for locking 1 million of us up in jail, and who also, again, under the pretext, began to bomb some of the countries when he was under investigation. Began to bomb some countries to get the attention off of him. They used to call it wagging the dog.
Wagging the dog.
Do you remember the movie, Robert?
Is that not true?
Yeah, I remember the movie Wagging the Dog. Yeah. Yep, I remember. Yeah, I remember Wagging the Dog.
We got Obama, who killed Gaddafi because Gaddafi was trying to put
pull Africa together.
The third world on a different taking them off the dollar standard. It's all of them, all of us. That none of them who have clean hands in this. And so I'm just saying that corruption and virtue is beyond party. It is based on who is the person who you're dealing with. And some Republicans have some virtue, and some Democrats have some vices. And so we can't get caught, I think, just looking at party affiliation, because if you do, you kind of miss the point. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Robert?
Well, I mean, I gotta, my mentality is like, I gotta look at it from the point of view of, well, what's going to be best, for people who look like me. And I look at the Republican Party, and I'm not seeing nothing there good. Nothing.
Well, I hear you, but we're not making, just so that you know, we're not making arguments. Hold on. We're not, because we're engaging you, okay? We're engaging. We're not, you don't just have to make a statement. We can have a conversation. This is not about making an argument for either party. This is because no matter who's in office, we need to be thriving, not just surviving. So, and that is something that everybody else has figured out but us. We get too emotional in our politics. I don't want anyone who looks just like me, and I'm not just going to fight for people who look like me. Because some of the biggest toms in the world look just like me. Some of the people who are as anti-freedom as they could be look just like me. I want to know, I'm going to work with a Dennis Kucinich, who live in a car with about 8 or 9 brothers and sisters, who became mayor of Cleveland, and because he went up against big business, they put him out of office, and he said, that's all right, I'll take it. But the record will reflect that I stood up for the people. Now I'm going to work with someone like that, who does not look like me, except for the fact that he is a human being. So we've got to grow up in our politics. I'm going to work with Chuck Percy. I didn't agree with on a lot of things domestically. But in terms of his foreign policy, I could get with him. And I know that, and you remember this, Dwight, if we needed something from Senator Percy, he would come through. And when Joe Biden turned his back on the only black senator that we had at the time who was a Republican, Ed Brooke, who put his whole career on the line, and he lost his seat trying to save busing. It was Chuck Percy, the Republican senator from the great state of Illinois, who brought him to Operation Push so he could talk to us and make the case for busing. Took him around the country. That's what he did. We have to become more sophisticated, more grown up in our politics, Robert. And just because, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And like you said, some Democrats have vices. Some Republicans have virtues. Let's get over it. And you know what? If the Republicans could get a clue, and let me tell you, the corporate media is going to work against us all coming together on the weaponization of these government agencies against all of us who oppose the status quo, which is choking the hell out of everybody. There is a story that I read you today. Wait a minute, Dwight. Top U.S. companies admit to hiking prices to pad their profits. They're the ones who are driving inflation.
Yes, they are.
But if a Republican says it, we'll say, oh, well, it's not that bad because at least we have a black person who heads this company. They can go to hell. Because they're the ones who are taking food out of your mouth, taking food out of your baby's mouth. They're the ones who are closing your schools. They're the ones who are making life hard for you.
Mm-hmm. And Maxon is a Democrat, and he's more to the right than most Republicans.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's beyond party. They operate off their own interests, whatever their interest is. And we just have to find people whose interests are more connected to our own.
I mean, that's
the challenge.
I'm an independent Democrat. So, you know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, I gotta.
That's the contradiction, Robert. That's an oxymoron. An independent Democrat. That's an oxymoron.
No, but then it's like oxymoron for Santita too.
Santita.
That's like saying I'm a cold hot tamale. You either independent or you're a Democrat.
Well, the reason, let me explain to you why I say I'm an independent Democrat.
I am a liberal.
I'm not liberal. I'm progressive. Let me explain to you, since you invoked my name, let me explain to you why I'm an independent Democrat. In Chicago, I don't know if you're in Chicago or not, but in order to vote in the in Chicago, you have to declare a party in order to vote in the primary. which is why I declared myself a Democrat. But I function independently. I don't just take. That's why I don't take. I don't have. You don't hear me giving up Democratic talking points when I've been on Fox News. When I'm here, I don't do that. Y'all can keep your talking points because that's not what I'm here for. Okay. So just understand that's why I am the way I am, because the Democrats and Republicans have colluded to create a system that forces me to declare a party. Boom. Mic drop on that.
I agree with you on that. You have to, at this point, unfortunately, you have to declare a party. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, and look, if you look at it, this is. You have to look at it, and I look at it like this. If you go and choose how do I put this? First, I know not every Republican is a racist, but every racist I've ever known is a Republican.
Well, let me tell you, you need to hang around some Democrats. Trust me, okay? Get on over that.
You know what I'm saying?
You ain't been around too many places because the sophistication of the racism of your allies can pass itself off in a number of ways. So I think if you look a little deeper, you might be surprised at just how common that experience is. But I want to kind of get to so there's this issue of labels. Because labels force an implied loyalty. So whether you call yourself a this or a that, there's this presumption that you're going to conform to a certain behavioral expectation. But when you peel this thing back, if you look at it, and I think the debt ceiling debate is instructive here. You have divided government. You got this perceived crisis that we all agree wasn't going to be a crisis because the implications for the dominance of the country in the global economy was at stake. So they were never going to default. So what did they come away with? They came away with an agreement on spending. And the agreement on spending had nothing to do with, are we going to agree to pay the bills? The condition on whether or not they were going to give this thing called paying the bills any truth was that we got to agree on the expenditure. And so they froze future spending on a past number, 2022 numbers, except the military got an increase. That in so when we look at the budget, and they agree, it was a bipartisan piece of legislation. Both sides voted on it. Some stood back, but for the most part, both sides voted on it. And here's what you had agreement on: the commitment to a budget is not about numbers. A budget is a moral document. It shows you where your core values are. The core values of the spending of the country going forward from now to 2025 has been etched in this thing about will we pay our bills. And so what they said is we are more committed to spending more on militarism than we are on the needs of the people. And that's both sides, Democrats and Republicans, in both chambers, voting for that moral compass being the thing that's going to guide how we move forward. That should be more telling than the labels and the loyalties. And unless we hold both sides accountable, they get away with it because we're going to do it again.
You know, and
that's interesting because then the question is, where do we end up? Because there's only two sides. I mean, we could say we for the people. There are only two labels. For the people. I mean, we could say we're for the people, but at the end of the day, we only have two parties. Here's what I would say. If when you go to school, you learn how to alphabetize. A comes before B comes before C, and you learn that as you go through the dictionary. So I often tell folks this: what WHAT comes before who? WHO. And that's not just in the dictionary, that's in policy. And we don't have enough conversations. What's the agenda drives the vote, not the vote drives the agenda. You got the thing backwards. And because we don't have agenda conversations with folks who say they need our vote, we come away with appeals to personality
which allows us to be intrigued by the foolishness we see on television even right now. And we've taken our eye off of the need to have a substantive, credible conversation about what's on the agenda. And if you hold them accountable to the agenda, they cannot then try to overwhelm you with the bright, shiny thing and do the Jedi mind trick and say, ooh, let your emotions overtake you so that you will respond in a way that will run counter to what's in your best interest. That's what this really comes about. If you can say, these are the things, what do you have to say about education, about use of public funds, about demilitarization? What do you say about making sure that we close the racial wealth gap? What do you say about making sure that we have access to technology? What do you say when we lay out the agenda? Right. If you lay out the agenda, that's a policy conversation. That's not a party conversation. Make both sides have that conversation, and we'll go from there.
If I was going to have, if I had to speak to the Democratic leadership, I had a voice like that. I'd be like, hey, y'all owe the black community a debt for a very long time that you've never come through on. That's just something I would say. There's a debt that's owed to us. I mean, that's not if the black community announced for the Democratic Party, they would never have gotten in office anywhere.
Yeah, we know that. Right.
Okay. So the Republicans would not have had. But here's where we got to get right on our history. The Republican reinforcement was leveraged off of the emancipation of formerly enslaved persons. So even as we were working through literacy tests and poll taxes and all of that stuff to suppress the vote, that was, as you pointed out, the Dixiecrats trying to make it harder in the South for liberated, emancipated blacks to change the political dynamic. Now you have a shift. You don't have poll taxes and literacy tests, but what you do have is the moving of polling places and the intimidation that happens. And that's not just in red states. That's happening in blue places, too. The whole issue is that we recognize that what the nation owes, not a party, the nation owes to those who are the descendants of those who have been formerly enslaved and those who were here when we got here, those who were displaced by force and by warfare and by violence. They owe restitution for the harm that have been done. That comes at an economic cost. And so when we're having these conversations about who, this ain't about Biden and this ain't about Trump. At the end of the day, they are two sides of the same coin representing the same interest, which comes down to corporate profits. One cuts taxes for corporations. The other gives this specter that they're going to raise taxes on the corporations, but then create loopholes that make the bottom line more feasible because they need the market economy to thrive. So let's not get caught up in the propaganda. That's the whole reason for propaganda. So they give you talking points that displace your analysis, and you never get to making your righteous demand for what's in your best interest, because we've gotten trapped in this whole thing about he got arraigned, what's going to happen. It don't matter. At the end of the day, I'll get up and go to court this morning. It's a whole bunch of folks who are going to get arraigned today. Some going to take pleas. Some going to go to trial. And they ain't making the news. Look, leave him and leave them to be part of that same process that we have to navigate every day, and let's not give it a higher weight and value than it deserves. Because at the end of the day, we still got to put food on our table, roofs over our heads. We have to have our streets paved, and we have to make sure our families are taken care of. And if we don't prioritize that because we're sensationalized by this, then we become responsible for our own suffering.
Yeah. It ain't nothing but entertainment. That's all Trump is right now.
No, he's a little bit more than entertainment, because he's deep in the system. And there's a lot going on here. I would urge you to go beyond. He's a compelling figure, so he is entertaining. But there's a lot going on here. You have the intelligence community. Some are behind him, some are not. There's a lot going on, Robert, and you think with such depth and with so much clarity that you owe it to yourself to step back and understand that. Because sometimes we can be so close to the big screen that we just see the pixels. Like, no, you need to step back so you can see the big picture. There's something else going on here. And we need to be clear on that. We need to be clear on that. And we're at an inflection point, I think, as a nation. We are the ones, we the people have to decide who we are and where we're going. And we also have to be honest about where we've been and who we've been. You know, and let me tell you, I repeat, whoever gets in office, it's not about, most of us, I heard John Johnson say this, we have it all, we have it twisted around, Black people in particular. We beg for what we need and grab what we want. When you need to be grabbing what you need and then so that you can get your wants satisfied. You get my point? I mean, I
get what your point is. Absolutely.
We gotta stop that. So whoever is in office, Dwight and I just told you, Robert Strauss back in the 70s was the head of the Republican and Democratic parties. This ain't about a party. This is about you getting your needs met. Your needs.
Sometimes you get what you want, other times you get what you need.
But always get what you need. You might not get who you want, but make sure you get what you need always. Because it was, black colleges were defunded under Obama. It was Trump who pushed the HBCU office, but Trump pulled the HBCU office back in the White House because of Omarosa. You don't have to like her, you don't have to like him, but you gotta like that. Because we were closing dormitories at Morehouse where Dr. King went to school. That stopped.
Yeah. Santita, there's an adage that says we have no permanent allies, no permanent enemies, just permanent interests.
That's it.
That's true.
We got to be clear on our interests.
That's it. So
I appreciate the update, man. Y'all making me feel smarter.
Well, no. You stayed around and you asked a great question, and that's why we wanted to engage you. And given what we've seen, we'd be derelict if we didn't say, hey, you're not my brother. You sound like you could be my son. For me to say, honey, wait a minute. Let me give you the benefit of what we've seen. Because I don't think you knew that Robert Strauss story. That was something I lived with as a little girl, but I thought it was interesting.
No, I didn't know that.
Okay, and at my dining room table, we talked about it because our parents would make us sit and listen to, and Dwight is a witness because he sat at the table too. We were exposed to these conversations. So now, wait a minute. So when you know that you've had one person be the head of both parties, you need to be clear on what you're dealing with.
Yeah, my parents were Jehovah's Witnesses, so I had to learn by myself politics. You know,
sure.
I had to kind of go out there and learn. They didn't talk about it because they didn't believe in it, but I just learned on my own. So I appreciate the intelligence.
But you know what? Look at what your parents did with you. They did something right.
Man, I ain't a criminal. I ain't out here robbing nobody.
Well, no, I mean, I think you're a good-hearted person, and your parents did what they knew best, because they knew that this is an evil, wicked world, and they knew that first we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and they wanted to make sure that you were grounded in God. And whether you are an atheist or agnostic, you are a good person. I can feel that, and you applaud your parents for that. Now you can figure out the rest, okay?
Amen. You guys have a great day. I'm going to get you back to work. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any closing comments? I don't know who's still here. Daryl, you still here? Boy, we've had a lot going on this morning. Okay, well, I want to get some closing thoughts from you, the Right Reverend, and then you, Dwight. Is Reverend Yuri, is he still there? Dwight McKee?
I thought maybe you. I thought maybe you were talking to Daryl Jones. You said Right Reverend, so I was going to hold my peace.
I have given him a wife. I sent him a text. He was like, "How's your wife?" He was like,
Look,
I'm not.
Look, let me not get in the way while you giving stuff away. Let me just go and hold my place alive.
Look,
I think I'll be the setup guy for Brother Jones. Some folks will come away with what they are seeing as a deterrent, as a caution as to why they should sit out the electoral process. when in reality, it's the other way around. If there were ever any more extreme justification for why we have to stay politically engaged about the issues that matter to us, we're seeing it play out before our very eyes, because all of this is sucking the air out of the room about what it takes to just live a life of dignity and possibility for the masses. We cannot become consumed by the intrigue of propaganda that is really tied to, ultimately, I think this comes down to one thing: who's going to control the utility of the military in a time when militarism and escalation is part of the global economy equation, and the concerns about regular everyday people have been given short shrift and now actually tossed aside. And so the people have to do what is the only recourse that people have in a constitutional democracy, is they must stand up and demand that their issues be heard and addressed, and that's done through voting. We cannot become less excited. We've got to get more intentional and more excited about the process and make sure that we do everything we can, whether it's climbing walls, going through tunnels, waiting in line, standing in the rain, whatever's going to be required of us in every election, local, state, and federal, in the days to come. We've got to do it, lest we concede that our oppression is exacted against us without permission.
Dwight McKee, your closing thought?
I think you would knock it out the park. The important part is us understanding what's at stake. Why are they going through all these shenanigans? So much as the FBI is selective prosecution and the CIA against the FBI and them trying to take one president out against another and then protect another president, is because it is no accident in that budget conversation, that budget ceiling conversation, that the military budget was increased and everything else was decreased in such a way as more young kids are going to join the military to survive. And the reason is what Yuri is kind of saying is that all the stakes now, if the whole game is at stake now, is with the third world and the Chinese and the Russians getting off the dollar standard, with there being a whole new world order in terms of the economy, in terms of food distribution, in terms of water, natural resources. Whether America be able to maintain itself as the world leading empire nation is at stake, and whether the West, that has been in charge for the last 500 years, at the expense of brown people and black people, whether or not they are going to survive at the level they have in terms of world domination. And so they're trying to get everything lined up in such a way that if it comes down to military occupation around the world to maintain the status quo, that's where they're trying to go. And with so much at stake, it's not about party, it's not about politics, it's about power. And what group of people are going to be at the top of that pyramid, and who else is going to be at the bottom of that pyramid. That's what this is about. So don't get caught up in the hype. Don't believe, as the young guys used to say, don't believe the hype. You have to see past the veil as Marvin said, what's really going on. That's the key question.
Amen.
What's going on?
Will you be at the table or will you be on the menu? How about that? And pay attention to everything. I love you, everybody. I love you, Reverend Dr. Yuri. I love you, Dwight McKee. Love you, Attorney Darrell Jones. Love you, Reverend Jeanette Wilson. Love you, Alex. Love you, Dr. Shanina Knighton. Thank you all for being with us today. My morning stars, love you, love you, love you. Love you, love you. That's right, Robert said, think out the box. That's right. Get out of the box that these people tried to put you in. Get out of it. Get out of it. Get out of it. I love you, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless.
Amen.